1992. So many interesting and monumental things happened, like the official ending of the Cold War, Cartoon Network being established, U2 being relevant, and compact discs, also known as CDs, surpassing cassette tapes as the primary medium for videos and music. Man, what a year. Oh, what am I saying? Forget all the boring stuff. Let's focus on the important history, like what was going on with Sonic the Hedgehog in 1992? Let's see here. Sonic 2 was released on November 24th. No. Before that too. Oh, here we go. Sometime shortly following the release of Sonic 1 in 1991, Yuji Naka got pretty pissed with SEGA of Japan due to corporate red tape and told them,
"That's no good. Then you get out of there,"
and left SEGA Japan, along with the large majority of Sonic team, all going across the globe to the great US of A, where production of Sonic 2 began at a relatively new SEGA Technical Institute, which was located out of California. Before this, STI was known for making great games like Green Dog the Beach Surfer Dude or Dick Tracy, along with some lesser known titles down the road like Sonic & Knuckles or Sonic 3, but who cares about those? They're irrelevant. We're here to talk about Green Dog. Anyways, back at SEGA of Japan with half of Sonic team and the lead programmer gone, another game was in the works by none other than the guy who literally designed Sonic, Naoto Oshima. Remember how I was saying CDs were the big craze back in the day? As always, SEGA being the trendsetters that they are, were working on not another dead-in-the-water console, but a physical add-on for their Sega Genesis called the Sega CD and needed a big name to sell with it. This game was developed originally as an enhanced port of Sonic 2 and began development alongside it, codenamed Super Sonic, and would feature animated cutscenes, additional levels, a fully orchestrated soundtrack, and sprite scaling effects to name a few additions. But once Sega realized this was sprawling into much more than an enhanced port, Sega gave Oshima full reign over this project as the decision was made to make this its own separate entry into the franchise. Oshima then contacted Sonic Team in California to exchange ideas, which is where the scrap time travel story and mechanic from Sonic 2 became a reality when Oshima found this idea brilliant, along with being influenced from Back to the Future, and went on to base the plot of this unnamed game around it. Oshima wanted this game to be on a grand scale and expand the cast of characters in the Sonic universe, with the introduction of fan-favorite characters like Amy Rose, who was designed to be a reversal of the generic kidnapping the romantic interest trope used in films and gaming, where she was the one with the attraction to Sonic and him being like, nah, I'm out of here. Along with another fan favorite that Sega definitely didn't butcher and forget about, only to have his only actual appearance in God knows how long be in a spin-off racing game for the Xbox Kinect, which didn't work 90% of the time. Metal Sonic. He was designed to be the main rival of Sonic, going with a much sleeker look than the rather bulky Mecha Sonic, which was used in Sonic 2. With a set release date of September 23rd, 1993 in Japan and Europe, while being delayed 2 months in America for a more rich and complex soundtrack, all about a year after the release of Sonic 2, and selling 1.5 million copies out of the 2.24 million Sega CDs made worldwide, which by the way totals up to about 67% of all Sega CD owners owning this game, or a gross profit of $123 million. With all that in mind, take a seat, get a blanket, and get comfy, as I present to you, and at the end, rank the very aptly named Remember how we said Oshima wanted Sonic CD to be on a much grander scale while also expanding the cast of characters? To put it bluntly, that happened big time. When booting up a new save for Sonic CD, you were greeted with a gorgeous animated intro sequence made by Toei Animation, which was actually animated by the Dragon Ball animation team of Toei. Anyways, this sequence shows Sonic blazing through Neverlake on a mission to save the mysterious Little Planet from Robotnik's grasp, which appears on the last month of every year. On Little Planet, the legendary Time Stones, which are the Chaos Emeralds of this game, are located, which are special stones that give the user the power to manipulate time and conquer the world, making it a race between Sonic and Robotnik on who can gather them first. Also introducing Amy Rose for the first time, who Sonic runs into and ends up being a hostage for Robotnik and his new sidekick and main rival, the fearsome Metal Sonic. I always find it funny how on the nose Metal Sonic is in the sense that he's built up as this formidable opponent throughout the franchise and is a huge fan favorite with a name like Metal Sonic. Like, Robotnik couldn't have thought of anything else. Like, I'm going to name my new creation, Sonic. No, he's made out of metal, so Metal Sonic. Anyways, back on topic. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. I love this game so much. It's easily one of my favorite Sonic games, period. While the wonderful soundtrack gives a mirage of a very cheery and upbeat tone, CD is and feels very dark. The tone is unparalleled in really any of the other games, including the 3D games. There's a sense of defeat, despair, and hopelessness in this that really gives off an uneasy feeling that blew my mind when playing through this. making this game feel completely distinct and confidently standing on its own 2 feet in what it sets out to do, while also maintaining its own identity and still having the likeness and feel of a Sonic game. Sonic CD really feels like Robotnik has already won and Sonic has failed, and is just doing a last-ditch effort to hopefully erase the bad that has been created by going to the past to potentially restore Little Planet and hopefully make a good future. Then throw in Metal Sonic, who matches Sonic 1-to-1 in everything, is teasing him throughout the game with projections of himself literally crushing animals of Little Planet, and basically laughing at him for even trying because no use! Along with taunting Sonic by straight up kidnapping Amy in front of him and watching him fly away, completely helpless, all leading to a final showdown looming at Stardust Speedway between the two. Metal Sonic is an excellent antagonist in this game, and it really feels like a menacing threat on par with Robotnik, while also having, in my opinion, one of the best boss fights in the franchise. I feel CD is kind of underrated in what it did for the franchise regarding setting up the stakes and darker tones of the more later, more cinematic games like, say, Sonic Adventure 1 or 2, for example. Some credit needs to be given to CD for showing how a franchise like this can take a real serious story and give life to it, while also still feeling in-universe, similarly to how, say, Sonic Adventure 2 or Unleashed are darker games that still have the same Sonic coolness feeling while still being grounded in their stories. It gave me that same desperation feel comparably to CD in its own somewhat smaller scope, all feeling like they take place in the same universe. The parallels in the story SEGA was trying to convey in the early 90s for this franchise are really interesting to see, especially once they weren't limited by technology to make these more in-depth stories a la Sonic 06, Secret Rings, or the other examples I gave above, regardless of what you think about these games. As we discussed in previous videos, the core gameplay of Sonic 1 was focused around great physics-based platforming, which resulted in speed by building up, keeping, and holding that momentum. By doing this, the player was rewarded with faster times to the goal, while the levels also catered towards exploration in the sense of extra lives, power-ups, and the likes in harder-to-reach areas. Sonic 1 was really able to create a great balance of rewarding platforming, speed, and exploration, which are generally considered the core pillars of 2D Sonic gameplay. What's funny about this is how polar opposite Sonic 2 and CD fare against each other when it comes to gameplay design. 2 takes the speed and platforming pillars and runs with them, making the majority of the levels focus more on going fast and getting to the end of the goal, while displaying the unique set pieces that defined each zone, sprinkling in some hidden secrets and expanding the horizontal length of each act, which generally lasted around 2 to 3 minutes. While CD, on the other hand, flips that on its head, using exploration and platforming as the 2 major pillars to focus on in regards to level design, expanding the verticality of each level, and stuffing each act full of secrets and little power-ups to find, taking me around 4 to 6 minutes to complete. Granted, a lot of that is going around the level trying to find the robot transporters. Oshima, when asked about this, was quoted in 1993 saying, "For Sonic CD, our ideas were to make the world and setting larger, and to add more replayability, so it would be something you could enjoy playing for a long time. I certainly think the CD team nailed this on the head, because I played through this game 5 times before sitting down and writing the video, and I continued to find new hidden secrets or little areas on repeated playthroughs. It blew my mind. I love the design approach the CD team took to this game. The main objective of each act is to go to the past and find the hidden robot transporter to ensure a good future. And by doing this in each level, you unlock the good ending. But if you don't want to do that, you can also play it like a more traditional Sonic game, in that if you make it to the end with 50 rings, a special stage will open up, much like Sonic 1, where it gives you an opportunity to grab one of the 7 time stones, and if all 7 are gathered, the good ending is unlocked, no matter if the robot generators were destroyed or not. Since how differently CD plays and overall, I noticed in the community if you really enjoyed exploring and chilling in the zones and taking the whole thing in, along with the slower paced platforming of 1, you'll love CD. But if you're more in tune with the speed and fast-paced nature of Sonic 2 that Yuji Naka really emphasized, you may think this game sucks. I haven't really seen too much in between that, except for myself. I love both of them. Before I continue, let me explain the time travel mechanic. In CD, time travel is the name of the game. In the start of each level, you spawn in the present, and scattered throughout the level are signs that you can pass, and if you have a certain threshold of speed, Sonic will teleport to that labeled time era. What I found funny was Oshima wanted this time travel to be instant, similar to Back to the Future, but Yuji Naka's programming of Sonic 1 was so ass backwards, the CD programming team couldn't figure out how to modify the code, and ended up settling on the transition screen we all know. It actually reminds me a lot what happened with Bungie's jank Halo code when 343 originally took over, and all the problems that ensued from that because no one could figure out how to modify it. Back on track. The trick with the signposts, and I still don't really know how they work, but if you don't reach the speed threshold in time after hitting the sign, it will disappear and you need to find another one. The past signpost would be gone in like 5 seconds for me, while the future ones would stay a considerable amount of time, and I'm still not sure what caused it to do that. It can be quite annoying since there is literally no point in going into the future unless you have already broken the robot transporter. Another big problem that arises here is if you miss both past signs or any time signs for that matter, you need to restart the level since the signs are one-time use. On a lot of the levels, you need to get creative with maintaining speed needed to time travel, which I really enjoyed, whether it was having to spin dash to make a tight landing on a bumper, or some of the more automated double spring sections, which can get the job done too. One thing I find absolutely insane about CD is how each level has 4 different versions of it, those being the present, a more normal Sonic level, the past, which gives a more overgrown and ancient feeling to the levels, the good future, which is achieved from destroying the robot transporter and has little to no enemies, along with giving plenty of power-ups, rings, and the likes, and the visual of the level giving a more vibrant, bright, and cheery design, and finally, the bad future, which can be accessed by not destroying the robot transporter and teleporting to the future, where the levels have more badniks, more hazards, and give off a more decrepit, metallic, and decayed design since Robotnik had already won in that era. One other new game mechanic that was added is the Super Peel Out, which in my first playthrough, I actually thought was just a part of the intro sequence and became popular because of that, but realized it was an actual move in my later playthroughs. The Spin Dash is here too, and while I first thought the Super Peel Out was quite useless, although looking cool, I realized that's not the case at all. The Spin Dash is slower to wind up, along with not giving a large amount of speed, but when rolling in a ball, you're invincible to badniks. I found myself using the Spin Dash more when I was trying to get more precision in my jumps by comboing the Spin Dash and jump to land somewhere, like how I was saying about using a spring to hold enough speed to time travel. On the other hand, the Super Peel Out gives a faster windup along with a larger momentum and speed boost, generally being your go-to when you're trying to time travel, but on the flip side, also making you vulnerable to badniks, and you can't really combo as tightly with other moves like jumps and such to clear areas like how the Spin Dash can. I felt it was a great addition to Sonic's moveset, and certainly did not feel as useless as a lot of people make it out to be. I would love to see this come up again in future 2D games. Regarding the definitive editions to play this, normally I'd have a recommended port, but unless you have a Genesis and a CD add-on, the only real other option is the Christian Whitehead CD port, which is pretty much all over the place, including mobile. It adds both the soundtracks of the US and Japanese versions. Before the pitchforks start coming out, I prefer the US version, and I'll get into why in a bit. Along with Tails as a playable character, achievements, and some small other cool things, it's generally like $5 and goes on sale quite a bit. Sonic CD is also in the Sonic Gems collection for the GameCube and PS2, which is where I was unknowingly introduced to it when I was younger by rewatching the intro scene over and over and over again. It goes for about $50 to $60 and comes with a lot of other obscure and awesome games like Sonic R, but if you're looking to just play CD, I definitely just suggest picking up the port on Steam, PS3, mobile, or Xbox 360 Arcade.
Yes!
As we talked about, the zones rely heavily on the exploration pillar of the 3 pillars of Sonic. So they're full of little areas to explore and cool things to see. Starting with Palm Tree Panic, which is a refreshing and unique take on the classic tropical Sonic starting area setting that is prevalent in the franchise. Palm Tree Panic really displays what the CD can do with the gorgeous cliffside waterfalls in the background, the CG rendered badniks which can change depending on the time era, or the pseudo 3D half pipes that start the level off. And one of my favorite set pieces from this zone being the area where Sonic can speed through the inside of a mountain and comes out the other side with an imprint. Small little details like these are really what I appreciate about this game, because you can tell the development team is really having fun adding these smaller details to really give life to the zone, also with introducing us to Amy at the end of Act 1. Palm Tree Panic introduces the heavy exploration objects of CD, whether it's finding the hidden metal Sonic projections, baiting the player by showing rings or power-ups which can be accessed in a different time era that encourage the player to explore more, discovering hidden areas, or vertically scaling the huge cliff to reach the robot transporter. They really ease the player into how the gameplay of this differs from the more traditional Sonic gameplay, along with still giving that comfortableness of the speed that the franchise is known for. One prime example of the great exploration in this is, on my 4th playthrough, I found an area that required tight platforming between multiple moving sections that actually resulted in an invincibility power-up and an extra life. While the argument can be made, what is the point of going out of the way to find these power-ups and such, since you'll have plenty of lives throughout the game? I would argue they help, especially if you're going for the 50 rings to gather the time stones due to the abundance of shields. All of these cool little changes and details make Palm Tree Panic feel very distinct in the franchise, while also feeling very comfortable and similar to other zones, much like Emerald Hill or Green Hill. I feel this can describe most of Sonic CD in the best way, unique and very avant-garde, while also having the familiarity of staying grounded in the Sonic franchise. Since there are 4 different versions of each zone, I kind of feels redundant talking specifically about each time era. I'll display the general differences in the setting while giving my favorite time era and my favorite track of the US and JP soundtracks. My favorite US Palm Tree Panic track being the present, because I really like the laid back and peaceful feeling it gives, while also being a total vibe which fits the setting of Palm Tree Panic very well. Just as a side note, the US and JP versions of the past tracks throughout the game are the same, and I'll speak about why a little bit later on in the video once we delve more into the music. For the Japanese version, my favorite track is the Bad Future track because it's high octane and a very dramatic track, which I personally feel gives off a very sinister yet funky vibe. This is without saying though, all of the tracks from both soundtracks are absolutely phenomenal and definitely worth a listen, even if you didn't get to some of the different time eras. Overall, the experimentation in Sonic CD works very well, especially in the zones. That cannot be said about the bosses though. Similar to Sonic 1, the Act 3 of each zone, now each act being called a zone, and each zone being called a round, but for the sake of simplicity, we'll stick with the old act and zone lingo. Each Act 3 will have a bit of a prelude area leading up to the boss fight. The bosses feel very atmospheric and creepy due to the laughing in the beginning and the music, which is mostly thanks to the US soundtrack. But most of the bosses end up being absolute shit. Arguably some of the worst in the franchise in my opinion. The ideas on paper are really cool, but the execution absolutely sucks. And some in both senses just suck, period. This boss consists of Robotnik using bumpers to push you back and having to hit him like 3 times, and then it's done. I beat the boss in 20 seconds and faster on some playthroughs. It's not good at all. Collision Chaos opens with Metal Sonic bursting onto the scene, making his first appearance, taking Amy and flying away, leaving Sonic completely helpless and setting up this new rivalry. But that's really the only memorable thing in this zone, and it's easily the worst in the game. This zone is Sonic CD's take on the Sonic Casino trope, that feels more of a successor to Spring Yard Zone rather than Casino Night, somewhat ripping sections straight out of Spring Yard. The level design is quite forgettable also, and not very rewarding for exploration in any sense. Except in Act 2, where there is a second hidden goalpost high in the level so you can get out of the zone faster. While the level design is not memorable at all, bordering laughably bad in some areas, it also includes everything I generally hate in the casino levels in the Sonic games. That being an over-reliance on bumpers, which you do not have much control over projecting on where you will bounce off of, making them incredibly frustrating, then package that in with having to use them for getting up to certain areas and progressing through the levels, it's painful to say the least. There was also a section closer to the end of Act 1, which is hilariously bad, almost Mario Maker fan game tier in terms of level design, that being the long stretch of red bumpers that cover the entire ground floor. Like, who thought this was a good idea? If you take these bumpers out, there's a large amount of space here that can be used to make actual compelling level design. It feels really lazy and it sucks to say the least. On the other hand, I really like the aesthetic of this zone, feeling like the art director was definitely on some hella concentrated drugs when making this. Using very bright and vibrant color palettes for each era, all giving very unique and distinct takes on the zones. I also love the little details in this zone, like how in the past the bright neon signs are replaced with large rock platforms, giving a more natural vibe, or how the lake in the background switches in the bad future to an acid waste dump. And on the flip side of that, the good future has a bright, lively city in the background. My favorite time era for Collision Chaos is certainly the past, due to the little details that are changed and just how beautiful the level is, giving a very back to nature feeling, while also seeing how this becomes a big casino further down the road. In the US OST, I really enjoyed the Good Future track the most, as its guitar strings in this really set it apart from the rest, and also the track feels very, funny enough, futuristic and peaceful, much like what the Good Future era represents. For the JP version, my favorite is the past track due to the blending of the ancient feeling using what sounds like a woodwind with the heavy and loud drums, which I feel foreshadows the more industrial future to come, while also being very catchy. Oh god, there we go on this one. The boss in this zone is mind-blowingly terrible and infuriating. In design, it's very similar to Casino Night's boss fight, that being Sonic is placed in a pseudo-casino board, and you have to use these casino bumpers to reach the top, but it does everything in its power to make this astoundingly terrible. The whole fight solely relies on the mercy of these frickin' casino bumpers and these shitty pinball shooters, which are incredibly fickle and don't give much give on where you're getting shot, so it feels like you just got lucky with beating this boss and making it to the top. The boss isn't even Robotnik in this, it's just the frickin' bumpers and pinball shooters. It sucks, it's not fun, and easily the worst boss in the game, which is saying a lot by the way, because most of the bosses in this game are complete jokes. Title Tempest looks and feels like a Labyrinth Zone 2.0 in the best way possible, as Labyrinth Zone was my second favorite Sonic 1 zone. This zone shines in its exploration, giving multiple routes and shortcuts in Act 1, for example. With its huge pipes that will take Sonic across the level and also provide a route to the robot transporter, there's a lot of hidden rooms, routes, and such that really make exploration rewarding and fun. This zone being a prime example of what Sonic CD absolutely nails. Another great example is how the robot transporters have multiple ways of reaching them, like in Act 1. You can take the tube route, there's a route from the end of the level that leads to the robot transporter, or using the springs in the pits leading up to the section. It gave a lot of flexibility in how to approach finding the transporter. I also love the use of the switches in this, not just stepping on a switch to open a door, but also using them for turning on fans or unveiling areas with power-ups and the likes. Also having pretty crafty robot transporter locations in both acts. What's also really cool is how when going to the past, the water is mostly removed, giving a more cave-like appearance and completely changing the dynamic of the level. I love the setting in this level so much, as in the present it feels like a giant underwater cave system, and then when going to the past, it opens up showing a lot more vegetation, beautiful fish, or in the good future, it displays more of the refined, almost aquarium-like setting with the more sterile look of the zone. One of my favorite sections was at the end of Act 1, where to exit the level, you're shot out of a giant water spout, which was a really cool touch, I thought. I really like the looks of the badniks in this zone, especially the Tonbo, which was a cool take on dragonflies that float above the water. My personal favorite time era for Title Tempest was definitely the past, as it felt like a more primitive underground cavern, but a special mention to the bad future for this one too, as it really shows the degradation of the zone with broken pipes, dead plants, and a lot of pollution, which I all thought were really cool touches. The best track off the US soundtrack for me was certainly the Bad Future track, as it gave off a very melancholic and moody vibe, which fit the trashed and destroyed Title Tempest very well. While for the Japan tracks, I think the Good Future is the best out of the eras, due to the more peaceful and almost dreamlike feeling this track gives off. The boss in this zone is... yeah, it's bad. It's literally the Metropolis Zone boss, and if you watch the Sonic 2 video, you know I was not a fan of that one. This boss is a chase through Act 3, then the Metropolis Zone fight happens again, but easier than the previous version, because instead of the clones Eggman gives off, he now has very menacing air bubbles, which you can grab for oxygen, and then he goes down in one hit, progressing you to the next zone. Quartz Quadrant, in my opinion, is a very underappreciated zone, not only in this game, but in the franchise. While looking like a new rendition of Mystic Cave, it separates itself with its unique set pieces and beautiful design and layout, and also being a quartz mining factory, which was pretty cool, I thought. This zone is quite difficult in regards to time traveling due to the more cramped nature, but let me tell you, it is quite rewarding once you get that run going. I was able to combo it with one of the really neat set pieces being the circular tubes that take you from the top of a platform to the bottom in the first act. I know they looked very simple, but I just really like the design of them for some reason. This, like most of the zones, is another great example of the exploration this zone has, along with some really fun and different platforming. That being, instead of the mess of springs that was littered in Collision Chaos, the springs in this zone feel like they were implemented very well. That being, some moving platforms have springs that will take you to new areas, or other springs which will shoot you across large sections, but if maneuvered correctly, can also be used to easily time travel or to get to other areas that were more out of the way. This is another zone that the robot transporters were hidden in a very sneaky but rewarding way, in my opinion. I had a blast just exploring and finding the different power-ups and such this zone had to offer. I didn't see the point of the conveyor belts in this though, as they didn't really hamper my speed nor block me from time traveling. While all the time errors in this game are unique and distinct in setting, this zone was really one that struck a chord with me, as in the present, it displays this big indoor mining facility, but in the past, it's all outside in a more wooden and simplistic looking facility. While in the good future, there's a bright bustling city in the background along with really pretty blues and golds that accent this zone so well. And finally, in the bad future, it becomes very wastelandish and sickly looking, removing all the quartz from the level also. The time era I liked the most was the past though, just a little bit more than the good future, as I really enjoyed the more simplistic wooden feel to the zone, along with the beautiful vegetation and giant lake in the background. My favorite track from the US soundtrack is without a doubt the past track, as it's incredibly catchy and made me just want to explore and check out the zone while listening to the music. For the Japanese soundtrack, I really enjoyed the Good Future track the most, as it has almost a romantic feel to it, along with being one of the best songs in the game in my opinion. As for the boss, well, yeah, I don't think I need to say anything more about this. Robotnik puts Sonic on a literal treadmill. Like, what the hell? I really like Wacky Workbench. It's not my favorite in the game, but I really appreciated this zone more and more on repeated playthroughs, as it's just balls to the walls crazy. There's so much shit going on at once, whether it's the giant bounce pads shooting you through the zone, the moving and spinning platforms, the electoral gradients, the climbing sections, which I thought broke the pacing up quite nicely and didn't overstay their welcome, or the freezing rays. I feel this all adds to the charm of this zone and making each playthrough certainly not like the last. Also, the crazy amount of exploration and experimentation in this is insane. There's hidden pathways, you're able to walk through a couple of walls to new sections, and also the infamous crushing block that takes you to the robot transporter. This didn't trip me up though, as I thought it was very obvious there was something under there, and the crushing blocks look somewhat like a transport tube, so I put 2 and 2 together and made it to the transporter. I also really thought the badniks in this zone were really cool and went very well with the zaniness of the zone in my opinion. My favorite time era was certainly the present, as I felt it went the best because of the blues and purples with the crazy metallic warehouse look the zone is going for, and it felt very 1990s. I will say though, the past is just flat out gross. It looks like something took a watermelon color scheme and just painted that shit all over the zone. It's not good at all. As for the US soundtrack, I really like the Bad Future track the best, as it felt very funky, if that makes sense, and goes very well with the vibe of the zone. For the Japanese soundtrack, my favorite was by far the present, as it also complements the zone very well, but this time in a more hectic and fast-paced way, which goes excellently with all the stuff going on in this zone. Surprisingly, I actually enjoyed the boss in this level, as it was a very unique way of using the bounce pads that were shown throughout the zone, and having to do some tight platforming that made it quite fun. Although it doesn't last very long at all. Oh man, what can I not say about this zone? Stardust Speedway is one of my all-time favorite zones in the franchise, including the 3D games. This zone is not only a blast to play through, but is absolutely gorgeous in each era. This is really the only zone that harkens on the more speedy aspects of the Sonic gameplay pillars, and it's a blast with its twisting highways and flashing spotlights. There's still nothing like this zone, and even in Mania, which does a great rendition of it, I still don't think it was able to capture the magic of this because it's really just so unique. I love when using the super peel out or the boost pads, Sonic will create skid marks and some flames behind him. It's just so awesome and a nice little touch. As a side note, another reason why I love this game so much is just how expressive Sonic's sprite is. Whether it's the jump animation, getting frozen in Wacky Workbench, the aforementioned skid marks, or the little yes lets out when you get a new life, it really brings life to his character, and I absolutely love it. Anyways, while being mainly a speed-centric zone, I really thought the exploration aspects of this were still awesome and very well implemented, while also not distracting too much from building momentum. I love the disparity in the different time eras also, with the gorgeous present era that's full of life and trumpets decorating the golden highways, and having these beautiful purple accents in the background. Or the past era, which is a real calm, quiet, almost jungle version, replacing all the mechanical aspects of the zone with vines and Roman/Greek architecture and the gorgeous lake in the background. Or the real grimy looking Bad Future, which features these dark clouds and feels very worn down and decrepit, which is the opposite feeling of the present. It's really tough for me on this, so I'm just gonna pick both. I love both the past and present for this zone. It's mind-blowingly gorgeous, and both feel like real pieces of art in design and architecture. All the songs in this zone are phenomenal from both soundtracks. From the US, my favorite was the past, as it gave a more chill vibe to the zone, but nonetheless, the Japanese soundtrack mogs the shit out of the US for Stardust Speedway, with each time era being a 10 out of 10 in my book. My favorite for the JP OST was the Bad Future, as it not only fits the final showdown between Metal and Sonic way better than any of the tracks from the US, it also just is a badass track and fits the high stakes and high octane speed the zone is known for. And speaking of Metal Sonic, after chasing Robotnik and Metal Sonic down, and having Metal taunt you the whole game as if you already won and there's no purpose in even trying, it all comes down to this. It's finally time to confront Metal Sonic in a one-on-one race to see who is the real Hedgehog, with the fate of Amy hanging in the balance. This boss is easily one of the best bosses in the franchise, without a doubt. It's so cool, and the stakes have been and were set right when Metal Sonic first appears in Collision Chaos as a real threat to be reckoned with, and it delivers tenfold. Once the green light starts, Robotnik is right behind the two with a giant insta-kill laser, so staying ahead and beating Metal is the name of the game. Metal is fast and has some offensive attacks like his charge-up blast, which can break spikes. The race is close and tense, but once you beat Metal and see him get absolutely evaporated from Robotnik's laser as the door closes behind Sonic, with Metal Sonic destroyed and Amy saved, who gives Sonic a big hug for his efforts, the final chapter of this game begins with Sonic putting a stop to Robotnik's plans for good. Robotnik has created a nightmare of pumping pistons, walls of spikes, and blade-wielding badniks out to slice and dice you. It'll take all your speed and skill to get through this stage, but once you do, it's time for the final showdown. The future is up to you. A pretty fitting quote from the US manual to capstone this game. Metallic Madness is a great final zone both in challenge and tone, as it really feels like a final confrontation, and I personally think it's much better final zone than either Scrap Brain or Wing Fortress. This industrial citadel has a big emphasis on tighter platforming and a lot of deadly hazards like the buzzsaws, which are callbacks to Sonic 1's Scrap Brain zone. There's a couple unique gimmicks like the mini Sonic area in Act 2 that allows Sonic to fit into small spaces, but granted it's only used once in one section, and it's kind of frustrating because there's a door there, and if you use it, it takes you to the beginning of the section where you have to redo the whole area again. I also like the revolving window shutter platforms that allowed you to access the background of the stage, although it's only in small sections again. Both these little gimmicks I felt were fun additions. Both robot transporters though were tricky to find in this, but felt very rewarding overall. My favorite era was the present for this zone, as it feels very menacing, dark, and foreboding as Sonic gets closer and closer to Robotnik as he progresses through his lair, and the blues, purples, and dark greens give off a very cold and metallic feeling in the zone. In regards to the US soundtrack, I really enjoyed the present the most, as it feels very haunting and atmospheric, as this track gives a feeling of uncertainty but also a glimmer of hope with the nice guitar strings in it. For the JP OST, by far Metallic Madness Bad Future is not only better than the US Metallic Madness OST in every era, period, but is also great in displaying the hopelessness in the situation as for the Bad Future setting in this. Robotnik has won at this point, even taunting Sonic in the song saying he wants him dead or alive, or saying, "You can't do anything," which is a nice reference to the beginning of the intro song for Sonic Boom, where it says, "You can do anything." Before we get to the final boss, the Act 3 of this zone sucks. It's the definition of artificial difficulty by putting a bottomless pit over changing platforms, and those shitty casino bumpers make a return for some reason. Along with an opening and closing door, it feels very cheap and puts a damper on the overall great zone. The final boss has a prelude section with these firefly looking things you have to beat, which was pretty easy before the final confrontation between Sonic and Robotnik. Hopefully it's a better final boss than the Death Egg robot and has really high stakes like in Sonic 2, right? Nope. Like most of the bosses, it sucks. This boss consists of Robotnik having 4 side panels which he moves around and you need to dodge while hitting him. It's really lackluster and a pretty easy boss as he goes down in 4 hits compared to the 8 it took for the Death Egg robot. There's no real climactic aspects to it either. If you told me this boss was anywhere in the game with me not playing this, I would probably believe you. It almost feels like the CD team blew their load with the Metal Sonic race, when I think that would have served as a better final boss than whatever crap this was, as it feels really anticlimactic. This caps off the end of one of my absolute favorite Sonic games. But before we talk about the ending and wrap up, let's discuss the special stages and music. Accessing the special stages is very similar to Sonic 1 in how you need 50 rings by the end of an act, and a giant ring opens to the crazy drug trip that are the Sonic CD special stages. The special stages are in a pseudo 3D environment, much like the Sonic 2 stages, but feel a lot more fair and control much better this time, and are personally my favorite special stages in all the classics. The stages consist of Sonic having to destroy 6 UFOs within a time limit, and as each UFO is destroyed, Sonic's speed is increased, making timing your jumps and controlling Sonic a lot more sensitive. along with having to dodge the water and small hazards, which will run the time clock down faster, or speed boost, which can hamper or help you depending on your location. It's pretty straightforward. This is also the alternative route to getting the good ending in Sonic CD by collecting all 7 time stones. I feel this is the harder route to get the good ending compared to just finding the robot transporters, but I really appreciate they gave multiple objectives to the goal depending on your playstyle and what you wanted to accomplish the most. The backgrounds in this are some of the most trippy things I've ever seen, but also at the same time are gorgeous. My favorite stage being the third one, where there are a bunch of giant floating islands in the background. These stages caused me to sweat a bit, especially this one, because I couldn't keep my eyes off how nice the backdrop was. Not only do these stages show off the capabilities of the CD component graphically, but also complement the style of Sonic CD, as they're very unique and out there compared to the rest of the special stages in the other 2D games, much like the game it's part of. Very distinct and out there from the rest of the franchise. The music highlights this even more with the urgent, intense feeling sound the track has compared to the more dreamlike, free-floating tracks of Sonic 1 and 2. There was originally an 8th special stage which can be accessed from setting all the selections to 07 in the sound test menu. And apparently there was also an 8th time stone collectible here. When all 8 time stones were gathered, a pseudo supersonic form was able to be accessed, where instead of ring boxes in the levels, if you broke these boxes, Sonic would turn into this pseudo supersonic form. While both soundtracks are phenomenal, I personally feel the US soundtrack is better in capturing the tone of the game overall, giving a more dark, moody, and apocalyptic feeling, which can be first displayed in the intro sequence, with the US's more dramatic sonic boom performed by Pastiche, compared to the JP/EU You Can Do Anything by Kyoko Utoku and Believe in Yourself by Cosmic Eternity, which were actually written for Sonic 2 but used in CD instead. While the past time era tracks are shared between the JP and US versions of the soundtrack, the US version of the other eras gives a more dramatic flair in the present and good futures. Some examples of this are Palm Tree Panic, Collision Chaos, the special stages, Metallic Madness, and Quartz Quadrant, just to name a few, along with the low-hanging fruit that is the boss music, and Final Fever, which completely threw me for a loop when first playing this. While the JP version is hands down better in every sense for the Bad Future eras and all of Stardust Speedway, I personally feel in the present, Good Future, and the boss tracks, it doesn't give that same feeling of dread due to them going for a more upbeat present and Good Future track list. The Japanese soundtrack was this time not composed by Masato Nakamura, but Naofumi Hateya and Masafumi Ogata, who worked on the Sonic 2 8-bit version, which I haven't personally played. While the game was released in September 1993 in Japan, it was pushed back 2 months in the US due to SEGA believing it needed a more rich and complex soundtrack, which Spencer Nilsson and David Young of SEGA Technical Institute took the helm of producing in that short amount of time. You may wonder why the US uses the same past tracks as the JP version, and it's because they actually couldn't change them since the past tracks were the only tracks encoded in PCM, which stands for Pulse Coded Modulation, compared to the rest of the tracks which were streamed for the new mixed-moded CD audio, taking advantage of the CD hardware, which can certainly be heard in both soundtracks. The new US soundtrack was not received as highly as the original JP, even being called an atrocity that remains the biggest injustice in localization history by Dave Halverson of the once relevant Game Fan. Obviously, I completely disagree with that, as the US is my favorite overall, but nonetheless, both soundtracks still feel very fresh, catchy, and atmospheric, and are great to listen to even outside the game, which I do a lot. Now that the day is saved and Robotnik is defeated, Amy comes out and the final outro sequence plays, showing Amy in Sonic's arms as they escape Little Planet, while Robotnik's industrialization of the planet implodes on itself, and the chain linking Little Planet to Mobius breaks as Little Planet safely disappears and Sonic speeds off to his new adventure. Sonic CD is a very important game in the franchise. While being overlooked at the time of writing this, it sets a lot of the groundwork for what is to come regarding bigger and more grand stories, while also showing a larger cast of characters can work in a Sonic game, with both new characters becoming major fan favorites. While it's definitely a shame what has happened to Metal Sonic in the current Sonic ecosystem, I will always cherish his moment to shine since it's been a fast downhill slope since 2003. When originally released, CD was received with major critical acclaim, with Electronic Game Monthly giving it a 9 out of 10, and number 17 on their list of best video games of all time. Electronic Games giving it a 92%, or Entertainment Weekly giving it an A-, all giving praise to the new graphics, soundtrack, unique time travel, and diversity in levels, which both gave high replay value. I agree with all of this, as Sonic CD is one of my all-time favorites in the franchise, and I fell in love with the game, with how unique it is and how interesting the tone and story are for this game. It really made me appreciate the 2D games even more so, as the big draw for me in the franchise has always been the stories. While the game certainly has its faults in the majority of its boss battles and one or two weirdly designed sections like the Collision Chaos Spring section, I still fully believe this game is 100% worthy of the S tier, not only in the legacy it leaves, but it's just so fun to revisit, and each time I do, I discover more and more, and it just never gets old in the gameplay or the music, along with being one of the most distinct video games I've ever played. I'm really happy that this was able to be remastered, giving me the chance to play it, as it really rocks the boat for the Sonic franchise and could have easily been lost to the test of time. In my book, it is a must-play for any Sonic fan, and it is very easy to see why this was basically the only thing that sold the Sega CD, and is really a Darkhorse masterpiece for the franchise. Next is Sonic 3 and Knuckles, which is going to be a doozy, but I'm super pumped to share my opinions with you guys, and don't worry, I'm not going to be rocking the boat since that game is absolutely excellent. I hope you enjoyed this video, and stay tuned for the next one, and don't forget...
SEGA Enterprises.